In the very first shot of MASH, a stretcher bearer trips and falls on camera. That was a real accident that Altman kept deliberately. A $3 million film made by a director nobody wanted became a cultural earthquake. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in MASH. Number 20. Right at the start of MASH, before a single word of dialogue is spoken, something happens that almost no viewer catches. As helicopters arrive and medical staff scramble across the camp, watch the background carefully. A stretcher bearer loses footing and stumbles directly on camera. That fall was not choreographed. It was a genuine on-set accident captured at the Fox Ranch in Malibu. Altman reviewed the footage and made a deliberate decision to keep it in the final cut. Actor Tom Skerritt later described Altman's approach as consistently choosing authentic chaos over controlled staging. That stumble sets the film's entire tone from the first frame. Rewatch the opening titles knowing the chaos was real, and every scene that follows reads completely differently. Number 19. Every time a character pushes through the entrance of the swamp, the main tent shared by the surgeons, something unusual is right there on the doorframe. Look closely at the front entrance whenever it appears on screen. A Moroccan symbol is visible on the frame, a traditional sign used to ward off misfortune. No character ever mentions it. No scene draws attention to it. Production designer Arthur Lonergan placed it there as a deliberate visual layer for the surgeons living inside an ongoing conflict. It went unnoticed by audiences for years and was never explained in any dialogue. Once you know it exists, the swamp stops reading as a simple tent and starts reading as a private refuge the characters are quietly desperate to protect. Number 18. Throughout MASH, a Japanese radio station plays softly underneath nearly every outdoor camp scene. Most viewers register it as ambient background sound and move on. Stop doing that, listen carefully, and you will notice the station is broadcasting Japanese language versions of recognizable American pop songs. This was a fully intentional audio decision by Altman, not random set dressing. The song selections were timed to scenes for ironic effect. One sharp choice has the song Sayonara playing exactly as a character is driven away from camp. Composer Johnny Mandel handled the film's score, but these radio selections were Altman's own decisions. The director believed sound existed to be felt rather than consciously understood. Once you start listening for the irony, the background stops being noise and becomes its own layer of commentary. Number 17. The ensemble in MASH feels loose, naturalistic, and almost documentary in texture. That quality did not come from experienced screen performers. 14 of the top 28 billed actors were making their film debut during production. Altman recruited directly from improvisational theater companies in San Francisco, including Second City, The Committee, and the American Conservatory Theater. He chose theater performers specifically to avoid actors trained to play toward cameras. Watch any group scene set in the mess tent and notice how rarely any performer angles toward the lens. That documentary quality was built into the casting before a single frame was shot. As Hollywood Reporter noted in its original 1970 review, the ensemble felt unlike anything previously seen in a major studio comedy. Number 16. When you watch Elliot Gould move through the camp as Trapper John, confident and completely inhabiting the role, it is easy to assume this was always the plan. It was not. Altman originally offered Gould the role of Duke, the southern accented character eventually played by Tom Skerritt. Gould turned it down, unwilling to spend the entire production maintaining a regional accent he considered out of his range. He then lobbied Altman directly for Trapper John, arguing that he understood the character's energy and instincts. Skerritt stepped into Duke, and the casting locked from there. Watch Gould's scenes, knowing he pushed for every single one of them. The confidence visible on screen was not given to him. He negotiated for it, and it shows in every frame. Number 15. The visual identity of MASH is distinctive. Long lenses, fog-filtered shots, a roaming, voyeuristic quality that feels like someone observing through a window. That look came from cinematographer Harold E. Stein. What most viewers never know is that Stein was the third director of photography hired. Two predecessors departed before principal photography was underway. Stein built the aesthetic from scratch using Panavision widescreen lenses and deliberate fog filtration. His instruction to the cast was to play to each other rather than to the camera. The result is that performers rarely face the lens directly, pause on any interior group scene, and check. Almost no one is positioned toward the camera. That was Stein's direction from day one, and it defined the film's entire look from start to finish. Number 14. Every person visible on screen in MASH has at least one line of dialogue. That sounds like an artistic choice. It started as a financial constraint. 20th Century Fox refused to pay the rates required for non-speaking background performers. Altman solved the problem by giving every visible cast member something to say. The result was that background conversations in the film are not filler. They are real exchanges, improvised or scripted on the spot. According to Altman's DVD commentary, the density of sound in any crowd scene was built from actual dialogue captured across the set. Listen to any mess tent scene without focusing on the main performers. A separate world runs underneath, and every voice in it belongs to a real performer with a real line. Number 13. Altman placed concealed microphones throughout the production in locations actors were never told about. Performers knew only that microphones existed somewhere on set. That uncertainty kept energy authentic and made every improvised moment capturable. This predated Altman's advanced multi-track recording system, which he would not develop until 1974 for California Split. On MASH, editor Danford B. Green received the recordings and stacked audio layers in post-production to build the overlapping sound design. The dense conversations you hear bleeding into each other were not captured simultaneously. They were assembled in the editing room from recordings made at different distances and times. Every audio layer in the film is a deliberate construction. Listen to any scene and try to pick apart the individual conversations layered underneath the main exchange. Number 12. The overlapping dialogue that defines the sound of MASH was not invented for this film. Altman had been attempting it throughout his career, and producers had been shutting it down every time. He tried it on Combat, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and Bonanza, and each time it was killed. Then came his first major studio feature, Countdown, in 1968. Altman let actors talk over each other, and the studio fired him specifically for it. MASH worked because 20th Century Fox was not watching closely, occupied by larger productions demanding attention. The technique Altman was fired for using became the defining innovation of the film that made him famous. Rewatch any overlapping scene knowing it took a decade of rejection to put it on screen. Number 11. The PA announcements in MASH feel completely essential to the finished film. They give the episodic story its structure and rhythm. They were not in Ring Lardner Jr.'s screenplay. They were not in the source novel either. Green suggested turning a handful of existing recordings into a full structural device after Altman recognized the film needed connective tissue between scenes. Green took a second unit crew out to film additional loudspeaker shots. Here is what almost no viewer knows. Those nighttime shots were filmed on the evening of the Apollo moon landing. The moon is visible in the background of several of them if you look at the sky above the speakers. Most viewers have watched those shots for decades without ever noticing it. Number 10. During post-production, the Fox executive overseeing editing discovered that Altman and Green had photographs covering the walls of their editing suite. He sent an official studio memo demanding their removal. Altman did not discard that memo. He adapted the actual text of the complaint and had it recorded as one of the camp PA announcements in the finished film. It is in the final cut. A genuine piece of studio bureaucracy from an executive trying to control the production ended up embedded inside the movie he was overseeing. According to production notes from the post-production period, this was not the only time Altman used real institutional material as source content. Rewatch any PA announcement sequence, knowing that at least one of those broadcasts originated as a formal studio complaint. Number 9. The football sequence in MASH features real professional players and a production scale that stands apart from every other scene. What most viewers never know is that Altman did not direct it. A BC Sports director, Andy Sidaris, handled the entire sequence and received no screen credit. Sidaris later pursued legal action against 20th Century Fox for the omission. During the sequence, watch the background beyond the field. Late model 1960s automobiles are visible on a nearby road, and modern power lines run above the action. The sequence was filmed at Griffith Park in Los Angeles. The anachronisms remain in the final cut, never corrected. Those background shots do not carry Altman's eye. They belong to a director whose name never appeared in the credits. Number 8. MASH is classified as a war film set inside an active military conflict. Watch the entire runtime and track something specific. Not one weapon is fired anywhere in the film. The only gunshot sound comes from the starting pistol the referee fires to open the football game. This was a deliberate structural choice. Altman understood that a mobile surgical unit exists entirely in war's aftermath, receiving consequences without ever witnessing combat directly. He made that decision without announcing it in any dialogue or scene. Rewatch the film with this in mind, and the character's relationship to the conflict shifts entirely. The unseen presence of the war, always implied and never shown, becomes more unnerving than any direct depiction could have been. Number 7. The shower tent sequence in MASH centers entirely on the authenticity of Sally Kellerman's reaction at the critical moment. On the first take, Kellerman anticipated the tent flap being lifted and was already lowering herself before it happened. The take was unusable. For the take used in the finished film, Altman and actor Gary Berghoff entered the tent without warning in order to produce a genuine reaction. In later interviews, Kellerman credited that moment directly for her Academy Award nomination. Watch her eyes in the instant of the reveal. The reaction you see is not a performance. It is authentic surprise captured on film, and the Academy recognized it as such. Every scene Kellerman carries after that moment reads differently once you know what it took to get it. Number 6. The farewell gathering scene in MASH is one of the film's most visually striking sequences. Look at the arrangement of the figures around the table. 13 people, a central figure, specific arm positions that directly mirror Leonardo da Vinci's painting of The Last Supper. That staging was not written by Ring Lardner Jr. and does not appear in his screenplay. Altman devised the arrangement on the day of filming. A crew member located a reproduction of the painting, and actors were blocked to match the composition figure by figure. According to production notes and Altman's own interviews, the visual reference was fully intentional. Freeze the frame during the gathering and compare the positions against the original painting. The correspondence is exact, and most viewers watch it without recognizing what they are seeing. Number 5. Ring Lardner Jr. wrote the screenplay for MASH and won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. After a screening, he reportedly told cast members that not one word he had written appeared on screen. Scarrett later estimated roughly 80% of the dialogue was improvised during production. Lardner had spent much of the preceding 28 years blacklisted from Hollywood as part of the Hollywood 10, and MASH was his major comeback. His episodic structure and key sequences survived, but nearly every word the actor spoke was replaced. In his acceptance speech, Lardner noted the 28-year gap since his first Oscar for Woman of the Year. The film that restored his career was built on a foundation he barely recognized as his own. Number 4, that is strange, but it gets worse. During principal photography, Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould contacted 20th Century Fox and formally requested that Altman be removed from the production. Their concern was that he was spending too much time on background performers at the expense of the leads. Altman did not learn this until after filming was complete. In his DVD commentary, he stated that had he known, he would have resigned immediately. Scarrett, watching from the sideline, later said he recognized during shooting that the film was exceptional while Sutherland and Gould wanted out. Gould went on to make 4 more films with Altman. Altman never worked with Sutherland again. Every scene they share in MASH carries different weight once you know what happened behind the camera. Number 3. The situation became more complicated after filming Wrapped. When Fox executive Richard Zanuck and senior studio leadership screened the finished film, they formally demanded that Altman remove the operating room sequences entirely. Altman argued that without those scenes, the characters would read as reckless rather than as skilled professionals using humor to survive impossible circumstances. Producer Ingo Preminger arranged a test screening in San Francisco as a compromise. The studio arrived with 10 pages of required cuts. Audience response was strong enough that Zanuck withdrew every demand. Studio executives reportedly suspected the audience had been arranged in advance because the reaction seemed too positive to be real. Watch the operating room sequences, knowing they almost did not make the final cut. The film was released without a single change from Altman's version. Number 2. The theme from MASH plays over the opening credits and returns during the farewell gathering. Composer Johnny Mandel received 2 instructions from Altman. The first was the title. The second was that the lyrics had to be the most foolish ever written for a film. Altman attempted to write them himself and concluded the task was beyond him. He then gave the assignment to his 14-year-old son Mike, who wrote the final lyrics in approximately 5 minutes. Altman directed the entire film for $75,000 with no profit participation. Mike held a 50% stake in the song and earned an estimated $1 to $2 million in royalties, primarily from the television series that followed. Listen to the opening credits, knowing one of film history's great financial ironies is playing underneath the helicopters. Number 1. The biggest reveal in MASH hides in plain sight across every scene. The film is presented as a Korean War story, but Altman deliberately removed almost every specific Korean War reference from the production. No named battles, no accurate historical dates, no period-specific details anywhere in the film. Fox recognized the ambiguity and forced him to add opening text and PA announcements explicitly naming Korea as the setting. One character carries the name Mile Marston, a direct reference to a real military incident publicly reported during post-production. The PA announces screenings of patriotic war films the surgeons completely ignore. Altman had flown over 50 combat missions as a wartime bomber crewman, and he understood exactly what he was building. Rewatch the opening sequence knowing the Korean setting is a frame and not the subject. MASH looked like a loose military comedy. It was a precisely constructed act of creative resistance built from accidents, memos, and deliberate misdirection. The stumble in the first frame, the symbol on the door, the moon above the speakers. None of it was coincidental. Watch it again. Which hidden detail surprised you most, and what film should we open next?